Every now and again, a game comes around that completely transcends the confines of its genre and reaches an entirely different demographic of gamers. A game that sheds arbitrary labels and establishes itself simply as a work of uncut excellence. A game like Firewatch. Firewatch was released on February 9th for PC and PlayStation 4 and was developed by Campo Santo and published by Panic. Firewatch puts players in the role of Henry, a man with something of a tragic backstory that players are allowed to choose and influence in the game's simple yet effective, mostly text-based opening. Without allowing for too many spoilers, the events of the game's intro leads Henry to accept a job watching for fires in the wilderness of Wyoming. As soon as the player is dropped into the world, one of the most abundantly clear things about Firewatch is how stunningly beautiful it is. The game opts for a slightly stylized approach, with dazzling colors and lighting with an ever so slight cartoonish sheen. There were so many moments where I felt the need to stop and admire the game's lush visuals. The beautiful game world is absolutely necessary in a game like Firewatch, because people aren't a common sight in the Wyoming wilderness. In point of fact, the player's only real human connection in Firewatch is Delilah, a woman working in another watchtower several miles away, who Henry communicates with regularly. It is in the dialogue that Firewatch truly shines. The game is chock full of items, locations, and events that the player can use to initiate conversations with Delilah, and I personally made sure not to miss anything that could have prompted Henry to pick up his radio. Both Henry and Delilah demonstrate a command of sharp wit, unending sarcasm, satisfying humor, as well as offering emotional gravity when the story demands. Both characters are exceptionally well written and voiced, each boasting both magnetically likable and deeply problematic personality traits. The game often offers the player a plethora of conversation choices, lending to branching conversations that will often deeply affect the story of the game and the way in which events unfold. With a game such as this, the less one knows going into the story, the better. Firewatch is, at its core, a mystery, the sort of mystery that should be experienced and not spoiled. What I will say, however, is that the story is full of suspense, intrigue, throws plenty of surprises, and never tells too much until it means to. And through sheer writing and atmosphere alone, Firewatch manages to inject the player with small doses of fear and dread at key points throughout its narrative. Is the story perfect? No. The ending in particular fails to be as mind-blowing a revelation as the build-up would have one hoping for. The ending itself isn't necessarily bad, it's just comparatively weaker than the rest of the game. But even with the slightly fizzled ending, the game is narratively sharp, funny, tightly paced, and wows more than it fails. It should be noted that the game was written by Sean Vanneman, who wrote for Telltale Games' The Walking Dead. Vanneman's writing is the key to Firewatch's success. It's the crux of the game's excellence. It allows it to rise above the status of the quote-unquote walking simulators of late and into a league of its own. Firewatch is a game that plays like a movie, but more like a book. A lonely little mystery that walks the line of neither a walking simulator nor a Telltale-style game. A game like this, that's main gameplay elements are walking and talking, could easily have been a failure, but this game is no failure. Firewatch is an immersive, story-driven experience that demands to be played, and is accessible to gamers like me, who tend to avoid games that emphasize story over gameplay. Firewatch comes highly recommended.